James Carter had always been a creature of habit. His life was a symphony of routines, from the monotonous shuffle through the crowded subway stations of New York City to the predictable 9-to-5 grind at a nondescript office job. He was the kind of man who found solace in the familiar, comfort in the mundane. But beneath the surface, a quiet yearning for something more gnawed at him, something that would break the endless cycle of repetition. One crisp autumn evening, after yet another long day at work, James found himself restless. The thought of returning to his tiny, cluttered apartment filled him with a sense of dread. He needed a change of scenery, if only for a short while. Without much thought, he grabbed his coat and headed out into the cool night air, his feet guiding him toward Central Park. The park was serene, bathed in the silvery light of a full moon. The trees, their leaves tinged with the colors of fall, rustled softly in the breeze. James strolled aimlessly along the winding paths, lost in thought. As he walked deeper into the park, the sounds of the city faded away, leaving him alone with the night. It was then, as he rounded a bend in the path, that he saw it. A sudden flash of light, bright enough to momentarily blind him. James stumbled back, shielding his eyes. When the light dimmed, he squinted into the darkness, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Standing in the center of the path was a figure, tall and imposing. James blinked, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The being was unlike anything he had ever encountered, with skin that gleamed like polished silver under the moonlight. Its body was slender and graceful, almost humanoid in shape, but with an ethereal quality that made it seem as though it belonged to another world entirely. The creature's eyes were what struck James the most, large, almond-shaped, and glowing with a soft, mesmerizing blue light. They radiated a calm intelligence that belied the alien nature of the being before him. James wanted to run, to flee from whatever this thing was, but something held him in place. A strange, almost magnetic pull kept him rooted to the spot, his fear slowly giving way to a sense of wonder. The creature took a step forward, and James flinched, but the alien raised a hand, palm out, in what appeared to be a gesture of peace. "Do not fear, human," the being said, its voice smooth and melodic, echoing in James's mind rather than his ears. "I mean you no harm." James swallowed hard, trying to find his voice. Who are you? What are you?" "I am Xylar, a traveler from a distant star," the creature replied, inclining its head slightly. "My vessel encountered a malfunction and I was forced to make an emergency landing on your planet. I seek only to repair my ship and continue my journey." James stared at Xylar, his mind racing with 1,000 questions. Aliens, space travel. This was the stuff of science fiction, not reality. And yet here was this being standing before him, speaking to him as calmly as if they were old friends. Why are you here?" James managed to ask, his voice trembling slightly. Xylar tilted its head as if considering the question. "Circumstance, perhaps. Fate, if you believe in such things. My ship was drawn to this location by the energy fields of your planet. It is no more than a coincidence that we have met, but I believe there is value in all encounters." James wasn't sure what to say. This was beyond anything he had ever imagined, and yet Xylar's presence felt oddly comforting. There was a warmth in the alien's voice, a sincerity that made James want to trust him. "Are you alone?" James asked, glancing around as if expecting more aliens to appear. "For now, yes," Xylar replied. "My kind do not travel in large groups. We are solitary explorers, seeking knowledge and understanding of the universe." James nodded slowly, his initial fear beginning to dissipate. "What do you need? Is there something I can do to help?" Xylar's eyes seemed to brighten at the offer. "Your kindness is appreciated, human. I require a place to stay while I repair my vessel. It will take some time, and I cannot be discovered by others of your kind. Would you be willing to offer me shelter?" James hesitated. The idea of bringing an alien into his home was both terrifying and exhilarating. But something about Xylar's demeanor, the calm, the intelligence, made him believe that this was not a being to fear. I live alone," James said, almost to himself. "I suppose I could offer you a place to stay, at least until your ship is fixed." Xylar bowed his head in gratitude. "Thank you, James Carter. Your hospitality will not be forgotten." James blinked in surprise. "How do you know my name?" Xylar smiled, a small, enigmatic expression. "I have been observing your planet for some time. I know more about you than you might expect." A shiver ran down James's spine, but it wasn't an unpleasant sensation. He felt as though his life was about to change in ways he could never have imagined. Together, James and Xylar made their way back to his apartment, the alien walking with an otherworldly grace that seemed almost surreal in the familiar setting of the city streets. As they entered the building, James couldn't help but glance at Xylar, wondering what his neighbors would think if they saw him with this strange, silver-skinned being. But Xylar seemed unconcerned, his focus entirely on the task at hand. Once inside, James showed Xylar to the spare room, feeling a strange mix of emotions, excitement, nervousness, and a deep, inexplicable sense of destiny. "I will need some time to assess the damage to my ship," Xylar said as he settled into the room. "But for now, I must rest. Traveling through the cosmos can be quite taxing." James nodded, still feeling as though he were in a dream. "Of course, make yourself at home." As he left Xylar to rest, James retreated to his own bedroom, his mind racing. What had he gotten himself into? This was no ordinary encounter. He had just met a being from another world and invited it into his home. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. That night, James lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. He had always wished for something more, something beyond the ordinary, and now, it seemed, he had found it. But what did it mean? What would come next? Little did James know that this encounter would be the beginning of an adventure that would take him far beyond the confines of his simple life, into realms of existence he had never imagined. His friendship with Xylar would change everything, and set the stage for a future he could never have predicted. As sleep finally claimed him, James's last thought was of Xylar's words. There is value in all encounters. What value would this encounter hold? Only time would tell. But for now, James Carter's life would never be the same. The days that followed Xylar's arrival were like nothing James Carter had ever experienced. His once quiet, predictable life had been turned upside down by the presence of the alien, who seemed to effortlessly blend in while remaining entirely apart from the human world. Xylar spent most of his time in the spare room, which he had transformed into a makeshift laboratory. The room was filled with strange devices that hummed softly, glowing with an eerie light that James could never quite get used to. Xylar explained that these devices were helping him repair the damage to his spacecraft, which was hidden deep within the park where they had first met. The technology was far beyond anything James could comprehend, and despite his curiosity, he knew better than to ask too many questions. Xylar was a patient teacher, but some things, he said, were simply beyond human understanding. Despite the alien's focus on his work, he always made time to converse with James, sharing stories of distant worlds and civilizations that existed light years away. These tales captivated James, filling him with a sense of wonder and longing. He had always felt that there was more to life than the mundane existence he had known, and Xylar's stories seemed to confirm that suspicion. But as much as James enjoyed Xylar's company, he couldn't shake the feeling that this chapter of his life was temporary, that soon the alien would leave, and things would return to the way they were. He wasn't sure how he felt about that. On one hand, the idea of returning to his old life filled him with dread. On the other hand, the thought of Xylar leaving him alone again was just as painful. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Xylar looked at James with those glowing blue eyes that seemed to see right through him. "My friend," Xylar began, his voice as calm and soothing as ever, "my work here is nearly complete. Soon I will be able to return to my home among the stars." James felt a pang of sadness but forced a smile. "That's great news, Xylar. I'm glad you'll be able to go home." Xylar nodded, but there was something in his expression that made James pause. "However," the alien continued, "before I leave, I must fulfill a promise. It is customary among my people to leave a part of ourselves with those who have shown us kindness. You, James, have been more than a host. You have been a friend. For that, I am deeply grateful." James was about to protest, to tell Xylar that no gift was necessary, but the alien raised a hand to silence him. "I insist," Xylar said, with a gentle firmness that left no room for argument. "Tomorrow you will receive a gift, a legacy, if you will, that will change your life forever." James's curiosity was piqued, but he didn't press for details. Xylar had always been enigmatic, and he knew better than to expect straightforward answers. Instead, he nodded and thanked Xylar, though he couldn't shake the feeling of apprehension that settled over him like a heavy blanket. The next morning, James woke to an unusually quiet apartment. There was no sign of Xylar, no strange hum of alien technology from the spare room. It was as if the alien had never been there at all. But as he stepped into the living room, he found an envelope lying on the coffee table, made of a material that shimmered in the light. With trembling hands, James picked up the envelope and carefully opened it. Inside was a note written in Xylar's elegant, flowing script. "James, my dear friend, by the time you read this, I will have departed from your world. Do not be alarmed. The time has come for me to return to my people. But as promised, I have left behind a gift, a legacy that will be revealed to you today. Trust in what comes, and remember, true wealth lies not in riches, but in the bonds we share with others. Farewell, James Carter. May your journey be filled with wonder." James stared at the note, his heart pounding. Xylar was gone, just like that? He felt a deep sense of loss, as if a piece of his life had been ripped away. But there was no time to dwell on it, because at that moment, the doorbell rang. Still holding the note, James walked to the door and opened it, his mind racing with possibilities. What he saw on the other side left him speechless. Standing in the doorway were two women, both impossibly beautiful, in a way that seemed almost unreal. They were tall and graceful, with features that were both familiar and alien. Their skin had a faint, iridescent glow, and their eyes, like Xylar's, were a striking shade of blue that seemed to hold the secrets of the universe. "Good morning, James Carter," the first woman said, her voice soft and melodic. "I am Lyra, and this is Zara. We have been sent by Xylar to be your companions." James's mind struggled to process what was happening. "Companions?" he echoed, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do you mean? Where is Xylar?" Lyra smiled gently, as if she understood his confusion. "Xylar has returned to his home planet, but he has left us here with you as part of his gift. In our culture, we are more than just companions. We are life partners, bound by the ties of friendship and love. Xylar believed that in your loneliness, you would need someone to share your life with, to support and care for you. That is why we are here." James staggered back, overwhelmed by the flood of emotions that hit him all at once. Loneliness. Yes, he had been lonely for so long that he had almost forgotten what it felt like to have meaningful connections. But this was beyond anything he had ever imagined. "But why? Why me?" James asked, still trying to make sense of it all. "Xylar saw in you a kindred spirit." Zara spoke for the first time, her voice as soothing as a summer breeze. "He chose you because he knew you had the capacity for great love and kindness. He believed that you deserved more than the life you had been living, and so he has entrusted us to help you find that." James's thoughts were spinning, but he couldn't deny the truth in their words. Xylar had seen something in him that he had long forgotten, a spark of potential, a desire for something more. "And there is more," Lyra added, her eyes twinkling with a hint of mischief. "Xylar also left you with a great fortune, stored in a location we can show you." James blinked, his mind struggling to keep up. "A fortune? What do you mean?" "Come with us," Zara said, extending her hand. "We will show you." Still in a daze, James followed Lyra and Zara as they led him out of the apartment and down the streets of New York. The city seemed unchanged, but to James, everything felt different. It was as if the world had shifted on its axis, and he was seeing everything through new eyes. They took him to a remote area just outside the city, to a secluded spot in the countryside that James had never visited before. There, hidden beneath a large, ancient oak tree, was a vault embedded in the earth. The vault's door was made of a metal that James had never seen before, smooth and reflective like a mirror, with no visible seams or hinges. Lyra placed her hand on the door, and it responded to her touch, sliding open silently to reveal the treasures within. James gasped as he peered inside. The vault was filled with riches beyond his wildest dreams. Piles of precious metals and gemstones glittered in the dim light, each one more dazzling than the last. There were also strange devices that hummed with energy, alien technology that James couldn't even begin to comprehend. It was wealth that could last several lifetimes, more than enough to transform his life in ways he had never thought possible. But even as he stared at the fortune before him, James felt a strange sense of detachment. The riches were incredible, yes, but they were not what he truly desired. Xylar's words echoed in his mind. True wealth lies not in riches, but in the bonds we share with others. James turned to Lyra and Zara, who were watching him with calm expressions. "This is unbelievable," he said, his voice filled with awe. "But what am I supposed to do with all of this?" "That is for you to decide," Lyra said gently. "Xylar left these treasures for you because he believed you could use them to make a difference, to create the life you have always wanted. And we will be with you every step of the way," Zara added. "You are not alone, James. We are here to help you, to share in your journey." As James looked at the two women before him, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. Xylar had given him more than just wealth. He had given him companionship, love, and a future filled with possibilities. The alien's legacy was not in the riches themselves, but in the relationships that would shape James's life from this moment on. With a newfound sense of purpose, James took a deep breath and smiled. "I don't know where this journey will take us," he said, "but I'm ready to find out." Lyra and Zara smiled in return, their eyes sparkling with anticipation. "Then let's begin," Lyra said, taking his hand. As they walked away from the vault and back into the world, James felt a lightness in his heart that he hadn't felt in years. The path ahead was uncertain, but with Lyra and Zara by his side, he knew that whatever came next, he wouldn't face it alone. And so, the man who had once lived a life of solitude and routine now stood at the threshold of a new adventure, one that would take him far beyond the confines of his old life, into a future filled with love, discovery, and endless possibilities. James Carter had always imagined that immense wealth would bring nothing but happiness. Yet, as he stared out over the glittering expanse of New York City from the balcony of his luxurious new penthouse, he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. It had been several weeks since Xylar had left him with his alien gift, unimaginable riches and two beautiful companions, Lyra and Zara, who were as intelligent and wise as they were enchanting. But with this newfound wealth and companionship came challenges that James had never anticipated. At first, the transition to his new life was intoxicating. James quit his job and moved into the kind of home he had only seen in magazines, an opulent penthouse in one of Manhattan's most exclusive neighborhoods. Every morning, he awoke in a bed made of the finest materials, with a view that overlooked the entire city. Lyra and Zara were always by his side, offering companionship, guidance, and affection. They were not only beautiful, but also possessed an otherworldly grace and wisdom that captivated James completely. However, it didn't take long for the weight of his new reality to begin pressing down on him. With wealth came attention, and with attention came scrutiny. James quickly found himself the subject of media fascination. Rumors swirled about his sudden rise to fortune, and paparazzi hounded him wherever he went. Every aspect of his life was under a microscope, and the relentless intrusion made it difficult to enjoy the luxuries he had acquired. The pressures only grew as James became the target of opportunists and sycophants, each one eager to attach themselves to his newfound wealth. Business magnates sought partnerships, eager to exploit his riches for their own gain. Financial advisors, most of them dubious at best, offered their services, insisting that they could help him manage his wealth. James quickly learned that his money attracted more false friends than true ones, but the worst of it was the toll it began to take on his relationship with Lyra and Zara. While they had initially been excited to help James navigate this new world, They soon found themselves overwhelmed by the complexities of human society. Despite their vast knowledge, Earth's social norms, laws, and unspoken rules were foreign to them. They struggled to understand why humans placed so much value on material wealth, and why they were so quick to judge others based on their possessions. James could see the strain in their eyes, could hear it in the way their voices became more reserved when discussing the challenges they faced together. They were not just alien in appearance. Their perspectives and values were fundamentally different from those of the people they encountered every day. One evening, as they sat together in the penthouse's spacious living room, Zara turned to James with a look of concern. "James, we have noticed a change in you," she said softly. "This wealth, it is consuming you. You have become distant, preoccupied with matters that do not bring you happiness." Lyra nodded in agreement. "You seem troubled, more so than when we first met. We left behind our world to be with you, to help you find joy and fulfillment. But we fear that this life is not bringing you what you truly need." James sighed, rubbing his temples as he stared down at the polished marble floor. They were right, of course. He had been consumed by the pressures of wealth, by the expectations that came with it. The simple, contented life he had once known was gone, replaced by a whirlwind of obligations and anxieties. I thought that money would solve all my problems," James admitted, his voice heavy with regret. "But all it's done is create new ones. I'm constantly on edge, worried about who I can trust, about making the right decisions. And it's driving a wedge between us. I never wanted that." Lyra reached out and took his hand, her touch warm and comforting. "James, we understand that this world is difficult. But remember what Sylar said. True wealth lies not in riches, but in the bonds we share with others. You are not alone in this. We are here to help you. But we must find a way to live that honors what truly matters." James looked into her eyes and then at Zara, who smiled gently. The connection they shared was something he had never experienced before, deeper and more genuine than anything his money could buy. He realized then that he had lost sight of what was truly important. "You're right," James said, his voice firm with newfound resolve. "I've been so focused on the wealth, on trying to maintain this lifestyle, that I've lost sight of what really matters. I don't need all of this, the penthouse, the luxury, the constant attention. What I need is you. I need us to be happy, to live a life that we can all enjoy." Lyra and Zara exchanged a look, and for the first time in days, James saw a spark of hope in their eyes. "What do you suggest?" Zara asked. "I think it's time we simplify our lives," James replied. "Let's leave all of this behind, the penthouse, the city, the wealth that's causing us so much trouble. We can go somewhere quiet, somewhere where we can just be ourselves without all the pressures of this world." The idea hung in the air between them, and James could see the tension easing from Lyra and Zara's expressions. It was clear that they, too, longed for a simpler life, one where they could focus on their relationship rather than the trappings of wealth. "We can start over," James continued, his voice growing more confident. "I have enough resources to ensure we're comfortable, but we don't need to flaunt it. We can find a place where we can be happy, where we can build something meaningful together." Lyra smiled, her eyes shining with affection. "That sounds wonderful, James. We've always wanted to experience life in its purest form, to connect with the world around us without the distractions of wealth or power." Zara nodded, her smile soft and understanding. "We chose to be with you because of who you are, not because of what you possess. If starting over means we can find true happiness, then we're with you all the way." James felt a weight lift off his shoulders, as if a heavy burden had finally been cast aside. The decision was made, and for the first time in weeks he felt a sense of clarity. They would leave behind the life that had caused them so much stress and forge a new path, one built on love, trust, and mutual respect. The next morning, James began the process of divesting himself of the luxuries that had come to define his life. He sold the penthouse, donated much of the money to causes that truly needed it, and kept only what was necessary to ensure a comfortable life. Lyra and Zara helped him every step of the way, their spirits lifted by the prospect of a fresh start. Within a month, they had left New York City behind, settling in a peaceful, secluded area far from the prying eyes of the media and the pressures of high society. They found a charming old farmhouse nestled in the rolling hills of upstate New York, surrounded by forests and rivers that offered the serenity they craved. The farmhouse was simple but beautiful, with wide windows that let in the sunlight and a porch that overlooked the verdant landscape. It was a place where they could live quietly, away from the demands of the outside world. Here, James, Lyra, and Zara found the peace they had been searching for. Days turned into weeks, and as they settled into their new life, James realized that he had made the right decision. The pressure and anxiety that had plagued him in the city faded away, replaced by a deep sense of contentment. Lyra and Zara thrived in their new environment, their natural grace and intelligence shining through in every aspect of their lives. They spent their days exploring the countryside, learning about the earth in ways that were new to them. They cultivated a garden, grew their own food, and discovered the joys of simple, honest work. In the evenings, they would sit together on the porch, watching the sun set over the hills, talking about their day, and sharing stories of their pasts. It was a life that James had never imagined for himself, but one that he now cherished more than anything. The struggles of wealth had taught him a valuable lesson, that true happiness comes not from what you have, but from the connections you build with others. As he sat on the porch one evening, Lyra and Zara on either side of him, James looked out at the horizon with a sense of peace he had never known. He no longer needed the trappings of wealth to feel fulfilled. He had everything he needed right here, in the love and companionship of two extraordinary women who had come from the stars to be with him. And in that moment, James knew that no matter what challenges the future might hold, they would face them together, stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. Life in the countryside brought a profound sense of peace to James Carter, Lyra, and Zara. The quiet rhythm of their days, free from the burdens of wealth and societal expectations, allowed them to deepen their bond and explore the simple pleasures of existence. But even as they settled into this idyllic life, there remained a subtle tension in the air, an unspoken understanding that their story was far from over. The farmhouse became a sanctuary for the trio, a place where they could be themselves, without the eyes of the world upon them. James felt more at home than he ever had in the city. Every morning he woke to the sound of birdsong and the sight of the sun rising over the hills, casting a golden glow over the fields and forests. Lyra and Zara thrived in this new environment, their natural affinity for the earth and its rhythms bringing out a side of them that James had never seen before. Together, they cultivated the land, turning the once neglected fields into a flourishing garden. They grew their own vegetables, tended to a small orchard, and even kept a few chickens and goats. The work was hard, but it was rewarding in a way that James had never experienced. He found joy in the physical labor, in the connection to the land, and in the knowledge that he was building something real with his own hands. Lyra and Zara, with their innate understanding of the natural world, taught James much about the delicate balance of life on Earth. They showed him how to listen to the whispers of the wind, to read the signs in the behavior of animals, and to appreciate the subtle changes in the seasons. In turn, James shared with them the simple pleasures of human life, reading by the fire, cooking a meal together, and the warmth of companionship. As the months passed, James realized that he had found something far more valuable than the wealth he had once possessed. He had found a sense of purpose, a deep connection to the world around him, and a love that transcended anything he had known before. Yet, despite the tranquility of their new life, James couldn't ignore the lingering sense that their journey was not complete. Lyra and Zara, too, seemed to carry an unspoken understanding that they were living in a moment of calm before the next chapter of their story began. One evening, as they sat together on the porch watching the stars emerge in the night sky, Zara broke the silence that had settled over them. "James," she began, her voice gentle but serious, "we have been very happy here with you. This life, this place, it has given us much joy. But we feel that there is still something more we must do, something beyond this world." James turned to her, sensing the gravity in her words. "What do you mean?" he asked, though deep down he knew what she was getting at. Lyra, sitting on his other side, took his hand. "Our journey with you has been incredible, James, but we did not come to Earth simply to live out our days in peace, as much as we cherish this life. We came because Xylar believed that you were destined for something greater, something that goes beyond the boundaries of this planet." James felt a knot form in his stomach. He had suspected for some time that this moment would come, but he had pushed the thought aside, content to live in the happiness they had found together. Now, faced with the reality of it, he wasn't sure what to say. "What is it that you think we need to do?" he asked, his voice quiet. Zara looked up at the stars, her eyes reflecting their light. "There is so much more to the universe than what we have seen here, James. We come from a world where exploration and discovery are a way of life. Xylar believed that by bringing us together, we could embark on a journey that would take us far beyond what any of us have known." Lyra squeezed his hand, her gaze steady. "We believe that you are meant to explore the stars with us, to see what lies beyond Earth, to discover new worlds and new possibilities. The gifts Xylar left us, the technology, the knowledge, they were not just for living comfortably. They were meant to be used, to take us on an adventure that could change the course of our lives, and perhaps even the course of humanity." James sat in silence, his mind reeling with the enormity of what they were saying. The idea of leaving Earth, of traveling to distant worlds, was as terrifying as it was thrilling. He had always dreamed of something more, of breaking free from the ordinary, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. "What about this life?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "What about the peace we've found here? Are we really ready to leave it all behind?" Zara placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch light but reassuring. "We will carry this peace with us, James. What we have built here will always be a part of us, no matter where we go. But we believe that our true journey is just beginning, and we want to share it with you." James looked at both of them, seeing the determination in their eyes. They were right, of course. As much as he loved the life they had created, he couldn't deny the pull he felt toward the unknown. It was the same pull that had drawn him to Xylar in the first place, the same pull that had led him to accept Lyra and Zara into his life. It was a call to adventure, to discover what lay beyond the horizon. Taking a deep breath, James nodded. "You're right," he said, his voice steadier now. "I've always felt like there was something more out there, something waiting for us. If this is what we're meant to do, then I'm ready. Let's see where this journey takes us." Lyra and Zara both smiled, their faces lighting up with excitement. They stood, pulling James to his feet with them. "There is a ship," Lyra said, her voice filled with anticipation. "Xylar left it for us, hidden away until we were ready. It's capable of interstellar travel, and it's equipped with everything we need to explore the stars." James felt his heart race at the thought. "Where is it?" "Not far," Zara replied, her eyes sparkling. "We can leave whenever you're ready." James looked around at the farmhouse, the garden, the peaceful countryside that had become his home. It had been a sanctuary, a place of healing, but now it was time to move forward. The adventure that lay ahead was calling him, and he knew that he couldn't ignore it. "Let's go," he said, his voice filled with resolve. "Let's see what the universe has in store for us." That night, they packed only what they needed, leaving behind the rest as a gift to whoever might find it. With the first light of dawn, they set out together, walking away from the farmhouse and into the unknown. The ship, sleek and silver, awaited them in a hidden glade deep in the forest. As they approached, it seemed to hum with life, as if it were aware that its time had come. The door slid open silently, welcoming them inside. James stepped aboard, feeling a surge of exhilaration. The interior was like nothing he had ever seen. Smooth, seamless surfaces, soft lighting, and controls that seemed to respond to thought as much as touch. Lyra and Zara moved with ease, familiar with the technology, and they guided him to the central console. "Where should we go first?" James asked, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "The universe is vast," Lyra said, her voice filled with wonder. "There are worlds out there beyond your wildest dreams. but I think we should start with the nearest star system, just to see what's waiting for us." Zara nodded in agreement, her eyes bright with excitement. "And from there, who knows? We'll chart our course as we go, exploring, discovering, and finding new places to call home." James felt a thrill of anticipation as he looked at the stars displayed on the ship's screen. This was it, the beginning of a new chapter, a journey that would take them far beyond the confines of Earth. With Lyra and Zara by his side, there was nothing they couldn't face, nothing they couldn't discover. "Let's go," he said, his voice strong and clear. With a soft hum, the ship lifted off the ground, rising above the trees and into the sky. The world below shrank away, and soon they were soaring through the atmosphere, the stars growing brighter with every passing moment. As they broke free of Earth's gravity and entered the boundless expanse of space, James felt a sense of freedom that he had never known before. The universe lay before them, vast and unexplored, filled with possibilities that he couldn't even begin to imagine. Together, they would explore those possibilities, uncovering the mysteries of the cosmos and forging a path through the stars. It was a journey that would test them, challenge them, and change them in ways they couldn't predict. But whatever came their way, James knew that they would face it together, with courage, with curiosity, and with the unshakable bond that had brought them to this moment. And so, with the stars as their guide and the universe as their destination, they embarked on the greatest adventure of their lives, a new beginning that would take them far beyond the limits of what they had known, into the infinite possibilities of the cosmos.